Thank you so much for sitting down with us today. I am so excited to speak to you not only about this role, but a career that you've had in such a short time that I find both so inspiring and remarkable. So I would love to dive right in and speak about the fact that you, like many, were in this position of filming a production and being a part of on-set life and crafting a character, and then having that world shuttered for a
Yeah.
good portion of time, and then returning back to on-set life. So I'm curious for you, as I think was the case with so many artists, having that time away from set to recalibrate, where you had countless hours maybe to think about your approach to acting, perhaps think about this particular project in general, or just have outlets that maybe you hadn't had because you had been auditioning for years and years for a while before this role came to be. Were you able to just have moments of reflection that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Oh, 100%. I think under the circumstances, everything, it was pretty bad that we were all going through this. But at the same time, that time of just being with myself and not having to worry about like, oh, okay, well, I have to learn these lines and be on set tomorrow at 4 a.m. or whatnot, because it was like we didn't know what was going to happen and everything was just shut down. And for me, it was kind of like healing a little bit and just focusing on things that I might have pushed to the side that, I didn't really want to face at the time. And this was like, if it's now or never, like you either do it or you don't. Because for me, when I'm working and stuff, I put myself second. I'm like, my job is first. Everything else comes after that. But I don't know when I'm going to get another opportunity. So I need to focus on that. So this was like a good time to be like, all right, Alexa, you need to take care of yourself and focus on you for a little bit.
And was music a part of that? Because I know for you, you feel that that is really the next step that you would like to pursue, the avenue that you're looking to, you've already started to be a part of, but really craft a path in.
Yeah. Music was, I think for the first 2-3 weeks of quarantine was when I was kind of getting my whole like, oh, I'm going to hang out with friends. I'm just going to stay and have sleepovers all the time. Then that got kind of old. And I was like, you know what? I finally have the time to write music, to record it, and just focus on something that I love so much. So I called my agency and they were like, oh, here's a producer that you can meet with and talk to. And within like a week, I was in the studio almost every day working on that EP that I released, I think December of 2020.
Wonderful. And you say that period was a healing process in many ways. And I would love to know, coming back, of course, you went back to set, of course, a very different world on set life is, arguably has much more challenges than it used to because of all the restrictions and protocols. But how did you maintain the process of, as you said, healing and being more present, being able to take time for yourself, as you said, take care of yourself? How do you navigate retaining that skill set while now being in the thick of it again and in production life?
I think just kind of living it out, that there was such a long period of time where I wasn't really working with COVID and stuff. So it's just kind of making it a routine, just like you wake up and you brush your teeth and you take a shower, like it's ingrained in your brain that that's what you have to do. And for me, it was like waking up, looking in the mirror, saying a couple affirmations, something cheesy like that or whatever, to the point that it's like, oh, you're starting to believe it. Like I would write them down. I would have little sticky notes. I still have them in my room.
Yeah.
Just like stuff that I want to be thinking about. Someone told me this was a couple days ago, but someone was like, you have to plan out your day in a way that you don't have time to be anxious or be sad. So
Wow.
I was like, I think that's kind of how I've been trying to live my life since this whole COVID thing happened, because it made me realize like life is really short and you really don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I feel that with this character of Hope and the themes of the show in general, I feel that they mean something different than they did when you first started production on them. There's such an eerie resonance when the first season debuted. The thematic connections you really cannot ignore. So for you, what does this world this character in particular and what she represents, again, so many incredible layers to her. But do you find that there's sort of a different reality that you're tapping into, even though you are in this extraordinary world?
I think that this role, Hope, to begin with, I mean, obviously you saw the first season, she was very like hopeless. I don't know how else to put it, but you know, she didn't believe that there was a future or that there was anything worth fighting for. Mm-hmm. And when we took that pause with COVID, I think a lot of people felt that way. And then when we got through it, it was kind of like, it's going to get better. We don't know when, but it's going to get better. And it's funny because in season 2, her mentality just changes. She's like, okay, maybe there is something worth fighting for, and maybe I'm not as big of an idiot as I actually think that I am. And I think that just her character and her growth has resonated so much with me. I feel like her and I have been going through everything together, even though one's on TV and one's in real life.
I love that, being bonded to, again, this extraordinary character who I think, you know, her curiosity, I find, is so empowering. Just her liberation, her refusal to accept her reality, as we see with many of these young characters, exploring beyond her comfort zone, forgive the play on the word, but really, again, there's so much meaning in her name and the ways in which the premise of the show is presented. When you're introduced to her, you see, you know, she's escaping into books and so on. She's utilizing her analytical skills rather than, I think, the typical trope we see with teen angst, which is numbing with different forms of alcohol and so on. And I think in that way, she's such a positive influence. So specifically, I know you said you've gone through this together. Has she influenced the way in which you approach your work overall?
I don't know if she's influenced that. I've never had like a really big process or anything with acting. It never was a thing that I started because I wanted to like make a living out of it or anything. It was just really fun to me. So I don't know if anything's really changed, and I relate to Hope so much that it just feels pretty second nature to play her. Since wrapping that show, I did another show that was the complete opposite, and it was pretty hard to feel like I was in character, but at least with Hope and The Walking Dead, it's felt pretty good and pretty easy.
Right, such an ease to it, I think, again, especially not only when you're so connected to a character, but again, that almost trauma bond that the themes of the show
trauma bond
too.
Yeah.
And I think for viewers as well, there's also that unique experience that you must have had being a part of a series that's debuting during a time when we were still really anchored to our home lives. There wasn't a lot of connection outside of our comfort zones daily. And for anyone who was a part of a show or a film, we saw how audiences just flocked to these productions and also connected with one another, especially in the Walking Dead universe, on social media and through other fan platforms. So for you, did you experience that as well? Were you really engaging with or noticing how communities were really impacted by this project?
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of messages, and I still get a bunch of messages, people saying I really relate to Hope, or they're not even talking to me just about my character, but about the show in general. I feel like we got lucky in the sense that the show is so diverse and so inclusive of everything and anything. You know, nothing is like looked at as bad or like it shouldn't be that way or anything.
Yeah.
And it's nice for people to see that, especially if they're like maybe someone who's coming out to their family and they're so scared to come out to their family. Yeah. And then you watch the show and you see these people that like it's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And how everyone likes each other in the show. Everyone's so connected, and the last thing we're thinking about is what gender you are attracted to or like what color your skin is. That is the last thing that any of these characters are thinking about.
Yeah, and I love that because when the initial Walking Dead debuted, we're talking about over a decade ago, right? The world has evolved in so many positive ways, and all of the the ways that you're speaking about. And I feel that the show was ahead of the curve in that way. All of the shows that fall under the umbrella, and of course continues to evolve in that way. And we see, yes, exactly that. You have a generation, in this case, the first generation growing up during an apocalypse, and the theme is very much about rebuilding. And so, right, there isn't that time to revel in any types of, as you said, get bogged down in these issues that in the past would have been maybe problematic or taboo and so on. I think there's a really incredible way that, again, viewers need this show to connect to. And so I'm also curious though, when you are portraying some of the more difficult scenes, I think there tends to be a misconception to some that that acting has these glamorous components, and perhaps there isn't more to it than that. That once you book a role, once you are done with the struggle of the grind, that there is this kind of homeostasis that happens. But really, I think the challenges, especially now on set, as I said, can be far more difficult to tackle. So I'm curious for you, like, before you were, again, desperate to book a role like this, and then seeing the reality, right? The not only the long hours, but the intense action sequence where you don't typically have stunt doubles and so on, everything that you are called upon to do. What have been the biggest misconceptions, and how did you handle the sort of learning curve with booking a job like this?
I didn't understand the intensity of it. And I think especially a show like The Walking Dead, there's a lot that goes into it. You know, it's emotional, it's witty. I'm not a funny person. So that was hard for me. It was like the little comedy beats, but also like the stunt training. It's not just you show up to set, you get hair and makeup, you go to work and you go home. Like, this isn't like a 9 to 5. You know, you wake up at 4 a.m., you're on set by 4:45, or in hair and makeup by 4:45, you're in hair and makeup for like an hour. And then you think you have a break, but someone's knocking on your door that you have to do stunt training in between scenes because, you know, you have to go and learn the sequence. And I definitely think that in the first season, I wasn't prepared for that. I, like, mentally, physically, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I was so happy that I got on this show that I'd been working so hard to do and all this kind of stuff that I got there. And I think it definitely, like, towards the end of season 1, when I got back to LA after being gone for like 6 to 7 months, my body felt like it was just going to break. I was like, I've been going nonstop. I haven't had a minute to myself. I was working pretty much every day. So having that big break between season 1 and season 2 almost helped me prepare myself. Like, I knew what I was getting myself into for season 2. And I feel like for season 2, I was really able to focus on the work and not be so worried about like the stunts and all that kind of stuff. Cause I knew what was coming.
It's really interesting. And of course, there's so many discussions going on now within the industry about safety on sets and the protection of those involved in these shoots, because again, the reality of the arduous nature of this work, I think, often isn't highlighted enough. Can you speak to personally just being a part of this kind of machine that happens with production, where there is so much work that has to be done, and it has to be done in a very finite amount of time, that perhaps there should be more attention paid or continued attention paid to just how talent and crew need to take care of themselves or have some more nurturing?
100%. I think that at the end of the day, everyone just wants to finish the scenes. They want to get everything done. Yeah. And a lot of the times they don't care how they do it. They just need to get it done. And with COVID happening, I feel like it's been a little bit, I hate that that's what it took for it to get a little bit better, but you know, like, hours aren't as long. One of the jobs I was doing after COVID, they would have 10-hour days. I was like, that's amazing. Yeah, like, I can go, yeah, it's great. Like, there's no reason that someone should be working for 16 to 17 hours a day. And like, oh, you're only working 12 hours. It's like, no. We have to drive to set. We have to go through hair and makeup. And at the end of the day, you're out of your home for like 16 out of the 24 hours. Yeah. And when we went back to season 2, Nico Tortorella, who plays Felix on the show, we were talking about how there should be like mental health advocates on set. You know, maybe production should have like a therapist or something for the actors. Just because even if nothing is like visibly wrong and you're not actively thinking about something, if you're going through all this stuff and working all these hours, barely sleeping, it's going to catch up to you. And you have to be able to have an outlet, even a friend. I mean, it doesn't matter, whoever you trust, to talk to someone and not feel judged or like they're going to be like, oh, why are you complaining? You have one of the best jobs in the world. You know, like I have a therapist. I love her to death. She's amazing. And I'm sure I'd be fine without her, but she does give me the tools to deal with things that I don't think that I would know how to deal with on my own. And yeah. I think everyone needs one, honestly. I think it's great.
I love the idea of preempting versus I think a lot of times when it comes to, as you said, oh, it took this pandemic to get us speaking about these issues. Many said the rush to return to the way it was actually problematic because the way it was or the way it has been, as you said, are these incredibly long hours. And as you said, the idea of we need to get this shot at any cost. So the idea of having those pockets of aid on set to take care of one before it gets take care of someone and take care of issues before it gets to the point that something insurmountably tragic happens or someone is and just having that care taken already and have it implemented into set again before something is broken, let's say something's visible.
It's like a doctor performing surgery. You're not going to rush them. You know, they're not going to be like, oh, you have to fix his heart in like an hour and a half because we need the OR. Mistakes will happen if you're not doing the best job that you possibly can. And ADs, like I've worked with some amazing ADs that are like, they put the actors first. They put just everyone, you know, they're not worried about getting the shot isn't the biggest deal to them. It's like, you know what? No, this person is falling asleep or this person doesn't feel well. We can come back to this. It's not the end of the world. And it's really not, because there's so many worse things that could happen than missing a scene or something.
Absolutely. And we saw with Bob Odenkirk working on Better Call Saul this summer, how he actually did have a medical incident on set, and an interview resurfaced after that, sort of started making the rounds, where he talked about call times being pushed repeatedly and how he was afraid to say no. And so folks started to maybe connect the two as being related and so on. Again, all speculation, but again, really thinking about how when folks, especially young folks who are new to this arena, having to carry entire franchises on their backs, right? Really, really fascinating to think about. I really appreciate your perspective on that, being in the thick of it in both the old world and the new, as we speak about. You know, I also wanted to touch on something you noted before about your work ethic, because of the hardworking family that you have had, where you said nothing's ever come easy to me. And I think what struck me most about when you've spoken about booking this show was your first thought was, oh, I can finally fix my windshield, right? And so many of those from a working class background connect to that. And that's the first thought is, oh, my baby, okay, great. I now can fix my vehicle and so on, rather than, of course, all of the other layers of what that experience is going to lead to. So I wanted to wrap by speaking about that, of how that hard work that was instilled in you, and how, again, it impacts your approach to your career and just advocating for yourself, which it sounds like you've already been doing.
I grew up with a family that does not take any crap from anybody. You know, if something is on their mind, they will speak up. Me, I'm not very confrontational, so I might not do that. But I mean, I think my actions speak a lot louder than my words do. And when this show happened, it was, I would say, probably one of the lowest points in my life, where just nothing was really going my way. And I'm like, I'm auditioning all the time. What's the point of it? I should just get a normal job, because at this point, it's almost embarrassing. that I have this much hope that I'm going to get something. And I got that call. And at the time, my entire family was like living in different homes. Like my sister was with a friend, my mom was with her parents. I was living in my dad's guest house, which that in itself wasn't the best situation. So when I booked the show, the first thing besides the windshield was like, I got back and I was like, I could probably get a place and like bring my mom and my sister together. And that was, it made it so worth it. I'm so happy I didn't quit. I'm so happy that my grandpa always, and still to this day, tells me, he's like, don't stop. Don't ever stop. You can stop when you're dead. And I'm like, yeah, at the same time, take time for yourself. But if you want something bad enough, you're going to get it, you know?
Love that. Well, thank you so much. Again, I feel your story is so inspiring, and your openness so inspiring to so many. So thank you, and congrats on everything.
Thank you so much.